Whether you are currently in your 20s or those days are long gone, I'm gonna share the 5 huge money mistakes that I made in my 20s and how you can learn from them coming up. Hey everyone, and welcome to the Journey of Finance, helping you level up in your personal finances. My name is Cedric, and today I want to have a heart-to-heart with you about some of the biggest financial mistakes that I made in my 20s. The reason why I'm making this video isn't to have a pity party and to focus on the negative, but I really want to share some of the mistakes that I've made so that you won't have to make them. A little bit about me: I'm an entrepreneur, freelance filmmaker, commercial model, investor, and I run 2 YouTube channels. I'm currently well into my 30s and feel like I've learned a lot over the past decade about money, personal finance, and investing. Prior to doing what I'm doing now, I tried my hand at many different career paths, including being a music producer, working as a banker, a real estate investor, and even working as a financial services rep in New York City at the largest mutual life insurance company in the US. I guess you can say I've been around the block a few times before settling into what I'm doing now. My experience in the finance industry, along with my love for creating art, has led me to wanting to understand how money works and to set myself up to be financially independent by doing what I love. Not only that, but my goal is to help others who may be where I was in my 20s, and any age for that matter, who are just trying to figure things out financially. So if you're on this journey of finance and need a little inspiration or direction, then be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell and smash that like button on the video and share this video with everyone you know. So without further ado, here are the 5 money mistakes that I made in my 20s. Mistake 1. Not educating myself on personal finance. This mistake is what I consider to be the biggest mistake. And you know what? I don't even think I can fully take the blame for this one. You see, our education system in the United States has failed us terribly by not providing even the most basic education in finance and money. The irony is we focus so much on providing an education so that our kids will go to college, choose a career path with the purpose of making money, only to not have a clear understanding of how to manage that money that they worked so hard for at the job that they were educated to do. I think finance education should be taught at an early age throughout college and should be a requirement. Now, though our school systems are partly to blame for the lack of financial education, I can only blame myself after becoming an adult. Back in my college days, my idea of life was to graduate, get a good job with a steady income, and split my money into my checking and savings account. My idea for saving for retirement was, and literally I kid you not, to save a portion of my paycheck into my savings account all the way up until the age of say 65, where then I would hopefully have enough money saved up to live off of for the rest of my golden years. I had no understanding about inflation, the stock market, or investing, or about building wealth through owning assets. None of that. Had I started to invest a portion of my income in my early 20s, I'd be light years further ahead of where I am today. It wasn't until I was in my mid-20s that I was walking down the aisles of Barnes & Noble and the book The Total Money Makeover by Dave Ramsey caught my eye. His sarcastic smirk and fierce gaze pierced my soul and made me realize that I needed some financial help. I began reading the book from cover to cover, and this was my first official introduction to the world of personal finance. I learned about the importance of having an emergency fund, snowballing my debt away, and what a mutual fund was. Over the next few years, I began to read books and online blogs on personal finance and money. It was by my late 20s that I realized how far ahead I could have been if I would have just educated myself sooner. You'll see why in the following mistakes. Mistake 2. Focusing on only one stream of income. Now, going back to what I said in the previous video about my idea of working one job with a steady income, I, along with the majority of people, carry the idea that as long as you can have your 9 to 5, then you are set. That is the norm, right? Now, I did work part-time jobs along with my main job throughout my 20s, so technically I had 2 streams of income, but I honestly didn't have any plans with that extra income except to save a little extra or to pay down my auto loan for my brand new car at the time. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with having one steady stream of income, but there is an inherent risk and downsides associated with having only one source of income. What if your stream dries up? If your only stream of income is from your job or employer, what happens if you get laid off or if the company you work for goes out of business? What happens if, God forbid, you have an accident that prevents you from performing your job? You're limited to just that income amount. Now, if your income is significantly high compared to your standard of living, then this may not be as big of an issue as someone who is living paycheck to paycheck. The reality is you create a ceiling for yourself, especially if you're in a salary or hourly type of position. Again, I'm not saying that having only one stream of income is bad or foolish, but there are associated risks that we oftentimes never think about because it's just the status quo. Here are a few benefits to creating multiple streams of income versus only having one. You increase your income cash flow. Instead of having only your $50,000 a year salary, you might have a side hustle or business that generates an extra $20,000 a year. That's an additional 40% on top of your salary job, and you minimize the risk of losing all income if one source dries up. If you lose your one job, then you lose your entire income. But if you lose your one job but you have a part-time hustle or dividend-paying investments on the side, then you still have income flowing in. You can increase your disposable income. With the extra income, you can have more left over to build your emergency savings or to invest into the market, or even just to invest in your mental health by taking a vacation. One thing you'll notice about those who are considered wealthy is the majority of wealthy people have more than one source of income. Even if it's dividends from their stock portfolio, they always understand the power of multiple streams. For me in my 20s, I wish that I would have simply had an intentional strategy to add multiple streams of income to my financial plan. Well, I wish I had a financial plan to begin with. And that's why now I have several streams of income that provide a hedge of protection for me. And I'm always strategizing on how I can increase my current streams and also how I can add new ones. And I encourage you to do the same thing. Mistake 3, taking out a massive amount of student loans. This mistake pains me to think about. With the student debt topping over $1.7 trillion in the US alone and an average debt of $39,351 per borrower, I know I'm not alone. When I was in high school, I, like many others, didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I had some interest, but I didn't know which career path to choose, so I did what any other high schooler who had no idea what they wanted to do did. I spent tens of thousands of dollars on college to figure it out. I eventually graduated with a degree that I literally do nothing with. In fact, most of the jobs and careers I had in post-college never even cared about what my degree was in. Now, I'll spare my thoughts and issues with the idea of college in America for another video, but I think it's safe to say that I spent upwards of $100,000 for a piece of paper that provided me very little value in the real world. Oh, and it didn't help that I went to both a private college and an out-of-state university. The truth is, higher education is necessary for many, but in 2021, it's not necessary for everyone, especially with the skyrocketing tuition prices. But I know for me, my single most biggest regret regarding going to college was relying on student loans to pay my way through. If I can go back and do it again, I would have easily chosen to go to a public university in my state, which would have cut my overall tuition bill in half. In addition, I would have worked while I attended school to help pay my way through each semester. Even going to a 2-year community college wouldn't have been such a bad idea to knock out my required credits and then transfer to a state school to finish my degree once I figured out what I wanted to major in. I can't speak for everyone else, but I know for me and what I'm doing with my life now, I would have been better off not getting caught up in the hype of going to a private school, because in the end, it didn't even matter. Not only do student loans decrease your overall income you can use to save or invest, but it is also a huge weight that follows you for years and sometimes even decades. I can only imagine how much money I could have put towards investing in the market or even into starting my own business. But they say hindsight is 20/20. Mistake 4. Not having a financial strategy. Now, I mentioned early on that I started to learn about personal finance in my mid-20s. I even started a career in the financial services industry, helping others create a financial plan. But I didn't even have a financial strategy of my own figured out. Now, by my late 20s, I did have a simple plan in place where I was budgeting my money, getting out of debt, and saving a bit of money, but I never really developed my financial philosophy and figuring out my long-term strategy for my finances. So if I can go back to my early 20s, here's what I would do. I would first figure out how to maximize my one source of income from my primary job. Meaning, is there any room for advancement, promotions, or salary increases? I would then figure out how to add a second source of income, or maybe even a part-time job. Or better yet, starting an online business or blog. The next thing I would have done is to set aside an emergency fund. Then I would focus out on knocking out all of my student loan debt by making big payments towards the principal balance, and then I'd figure out an aggressive investment strategy that would include a percentage of my portfolio in the stock market and perhaps an even bigger percentage in rental properties. Even though this is just an example of what I would have done, I just wish I would have had the foresight to take some time to create a plan and be disciplined enough to stick to it. If you're someone in your 20s right now and you haven't created a financial plan or strategy for yourself, I encourage encourage you to do it now. Trust me, your 30-something-year-old self will thank you for it. And lastly, I'll keep it short. Mistake number 5, not investing early on. Had I learned about the power of investing and the opportunity cost of not starting at an early age, I would have dove in and put my money to work. Even though I didn't make a lot of money in my 20s, I still had enough of my income that I could have invested at least $500 a month into the stock market. That's $6,000 a year or $60,000 over the course of 10 years. That's considering if I didn't increase how much I invested per month. Now let's just say that I put that money into a fund that tracked the S&P 500 from June 2005 to June 2015. In those 10 years, I would have averaged a return of about 11% annually. That means the value of my investment of $60,000 spread out over 10 years would have been worth $105,906 by June 2015. Let's just say that I stopped making the $500 a month payments from June 2015 and just kept the money in there until today. That same money would have more than doubled to $233,000 in just 6 years. So by investing only $60,000 over 10 years, that same money would be worth $233,000 today. I would have made $173,000 simply by just putting my money to work, starting in my early 20s. So hopefully that example shows you why I'm kicking myself in the butt today for not having taken advantage of the market sooner. There's an opportunity cost of waiting to invest. We've all seen those charts that say if you invest X amount of money when you're 20 versus the same amount of money when you're 30, the difference in value is huge. So it's always important to get in early, to get your feet wet and to get used to the market fluctuations. If you feel like you might have missed your opportunity to invest early on, that's okay. The next best time to start is now. And those were the 5 money mistakes that I made in my 20s, so you don't have to make them. Hopefully you gained some valuable insight on why I regret my decisions, but also realize that just because I got in later doesn't mean that I missed my chance. Personal finance is all about getting started and taking disciplined steps to achieve your financial goals. You'll make mistakes along the way, but the key is to learn from them so that you can eventually reach your end goal. With that said, I want to hear from you. What are some financial mistakes that you made in your 20s that you learned from that can help others now? Let me know in the comments below. Well, if you found value in this video, then make sure you hit that subscribe button and share this video with anyone that you feel like it would help. It can literally be life-changing. I upload new videos on personal finance every week, so be sure to tune in. See you next time. Peace.